forget about the theory. So in this video, we are going to build a MCP server from scratch using vibe coding. So before doing any coding, let's see what we are going to build. So this is exactly the thing that we are going to build. So we are going to build our own MCP server. So in that MCP server, what we are going to do is we are going to build a tool which will actually run the shell commands. So let's say you have sent a command, ls command from your MCP client, then your MCP server will receive it and it will execute that ls command, and whatever the path you say, it will list all the files. So we are going to first create a tool which will run the shell commands. Next, we are going to actually implement the resource in our MCP server, and what will be that resource is our MCP server will able to read a file. So the resource is basically a file, and we are going to build it so that our MCP server will be able to access that resource. And third thing, we are going to basically build a prompt, and that prompt template will be already written in our MCP server, and that prompt template will be explain project. So whenever we send explain project from our MCP client, then at that time basically this prompt will get run in our MCP server. And this is exactly the thing that we are going to build. So before going ahead, let's see how will be our output looks like. So this is basically our agent, and in our agent you can see our MCP server is connected. Whenever we'll run like run shell command ls to desktop directory, what will happen is this client is basically our cursor. So this client will send the ls command to our MCP server which we already developed, and then it will list all the files in the desktop. Now let's read a resource file : readme.md. So what this will do is there is readme.md file which is already present in our MCP server, and it will be able to access that resource. Now we are going to run our prompt, and that prompt will be /mcp server /explain project. And when we run this, what will happen is there is already a prompt written in our MCP server, and based on that prompt it will actually give the whole output. So it will able to explain the whole project because the prompt that we have defined is actually based on that. So how we are going to build it? So what we are going to do is we basically type in a browser github.com/something/ai#/MCP server. So this is where actually the context is present, as we are going to develop this MCP server via vibe coding. So this is basically the context which is already present. Just I wanted to tell you is the URL of this GitHub repository is already present in our description video, so you can also take it from there. So basically you can see it here. This is the context, and you can see like in our context what we are saying basically like this is our project structure. So when we give this context, the AI should create a project structure like this. Then we are also defining what tools we really want to implement, what resources we want to implement, and what prompt we want to implement. And then we are giving all the context, we are giving the code quality and what is the acceptance criteria. So what you basically have to do is just copy this context. Now basically let's do the real part. So this is basically our cursor client, as you can see, or cursor desktop app or AI application or MCP client, whatever you want to say. Now we are going to put our context that we have copied here. What it will do is it will actually implement the whole MCP server for you. As you can see in my screen, it is actually implementing our MCP server, and it will take a little bit of time. And then now you can see basically we have folders created. So we have basically a folder called as server, where we have server.go. Then we have folder called as tools, where it has implemented our run shell command tool. Then basically we have a folder called as resource, where it has implemented our read resource for the readme.md, and then it has implemented a prompt which is basically based on the explain_project. Now basically our MCP server is implemented by the context that we have given. But now let's see how we can basically run our MCP server. So Let's go to the terminal and let's open a new terminal, and we can basically type go build /o is for output MCP server. So it will actually generate a binary, and then we can run that binary using /mcp-server. So this way our MCP server actually started and now it is running. Now basically our MCP server is running. So basically the next question that arises in my mind is how we can connect to our MCP server. So let's open a new terminal, and now this is basically a new terminal, and let's go to a browser and type github.com/something AI /MCP server, and in the readme if you scroll it down a little bit you'll get the config. Now you can see like I have given you the config that you have to copy. So there is one thing that I just wanted to point it out is in this config the command is basically /user/rohitra/desktop/mcp-server/mcp-server. So it is basically the absolute path of the binary that is present in my machine. So if you can see here, my directory is /user/rohitra/desktop/mcp-server, and after that I have to write /mcp server because that is the binary name. Right now let's copy this config, and we can basically use this config and add it in our MCP client. So let's open a path vim. This is the home directory path .cursor/mcp.json, and let's paste this. Now basically what exactly happened is we have also implemented our MCP server, and we have also imported the config in our MCP client that is called as cursor. You can use the same config and you can import it in cloud as well. The config is not different. Now before going ahead, I just wanted to give you one more info. So the info is basically, let's say whenever we want to call any API, REST API, so what tool you use? So basically the tool that we use is called as Postman. So as you can see in my screen, we basically do a get request, post request, or a put request from our Postman, and we get a response. Similarly, we have a tool for MCP as well, right? And the tool name is called as MCP Inspector. So what that tool MCP Inspector do is it will actually discover your tools, resources and prompts. So what I wanted to tell you is how the Postman is used for REST APIs. Similarly, you can use a tool called as MCP Inspector to discover tools, resources and prompts. So you can basically say like MCP Inspector is actually the Postman for MCP. So now what we are going to do is let's start this MCP Inspector tool. So as you can see my screen, if you go to the browser and if you go to the same GitHub repo, and there is in the readme file there is test with MCP Inspector, and then you can basically copy this command, whatever the command that is written here, and it will basically run your MCP Inspector, and you can access the MCP Inspector at localhost 6274 port. Now you can see this is basically the UI of MCP Inspector, and you can basically just click on connect on the left side, and it is actually connected to your MCP server. Now let's say if I want to list all the resources that I created, so if you just click list resources, it will list like, yeah, there is a resource present and the file is called as readme.md, which MCP server can access. Now there is a prompt present. If you go to just next tab prompt and click on list prompt, now there is a prompt present called as explain_mcp project. Now if you just go to the next tab and if you just click on list tool, there is actually a tool present, and that tool is called as run shell command. So now we have actually verified as well that our MCP server consists a resource, our MCP server also consists a prompt, and our MCP server also consists a tool. Now let us test basically our MCP server and let's see from the MCP client like is it working properly or not. So as you can see in my screen. So you can just click on the agent window and this will actually open the agent for you. Now what you can do is just write run shell command ls to desktop directory and it will actually list all the folders. You can just write read resource file / readme.md and it will actually fetch this resource and it will actually tell you what is written in that file. Now for the prompt, let's write /my MCP server because this is the MCP server name, and then you just write it /explain project and this will connect to the prompt of the MCP server and it will give the project explanation, architectural view, what is the component breakdown, and basically how you can build and run this project and what are the capabilities this MCP has. And it is just suggesting some improvements. Tada! We are basically able to implement our own MCP server from scratch using vibe coding. So I hope you like this lecture, but if you have any doubts, you can reach out to me in comments. Thanks for supporting me in this video. Thanks a lot.